In the vast, silent expanse of space, where stars whispered secrets older than time itself, humanity had carved out a fragile existence. On the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, the human colony of New Dawn thrived, a beacon of human resilience and innovation. But this day would be etched into the annals of history, not for the peace it had known, but for the storm that was about to descend. Captain Alex Mercer stood atop the observation deck of the Pioneer, the flagship of New Dawn's defense fleet. His eyes, steel gray and piercing, fixed on the void where moments ago an alien vessel had materialized. The Arcturians, an empire vast and feared, had finally come to the doorstep of humanity. The transmission from the Arcturian ship was stark, devoid of any diplomatic pretense. Surrender or face annihilation. Their voice, cold and metallic, echoed through every corner of New Dawn, a death knell in the ears of men, women, and children who had only known peace under the distant sun. Mercer, a man shaped by the harsh realities of space colonization, felt the weight of every soul on this colony. His decision would define the future, not just for New Dawn, but for all of humanity. His mind raced through scenarios, outcomes, the hard choices that lay ahead. He knew of the Arcturian might, their reputation for merciless conquest across galaxies. Instead of the expected capitulation, Mercer ordered a counter-message to be sent, one that would be remembered as the spark that lit the fires of war. "We offer peace, but we will not bow. Come to us with open hands, or we'll meet you with open fire." The response was swift. Arcturian ships, sleek and deadly, began their descent, their weapons charging with a glow that spelled doom. But Mercer had prepared for this. New Dawn was no mere outpost. It was a fortress in disguise. Hidden under its peaceful veneer were layers of defense, from energy shields to space mines, all innovations born from human desperation and ingenuity. As the Arcturian armada approached, Mercer gave the command to activate the defenses. The silence of space was shattered by the roar of human technology. Lasers and plasma cannons lit up the darkness, but it was the human spirit, their refusal to be subjugated, that truly shone. Yet, amidst the chaos of battle, a sense of foreboding gripped Mercer. He knew this was but the beginning. The Arcturians had underestimated humanity, thinking them weak, isolated. But humans had learned to fight not just for survival, but for freedom. The battle raged, a dance of light and death. New Dawn held, but at what cost? Ships were lost, lives were extinguished, and the ground beneath Mercer's feet felt less certain. He made the hardest decision a leader could: retreat. Not in defeat, but to regroup, to plan for the inevitable counterstrike. As the Pioneer pulled back, leaving the Arcturian ships to deal with the aftermath of their surprise, Mercer looked back at New Dawn, now a battlefield. He knew this was only the first act of a much larger war. His heart was heavy, not just for the lives lost, but for the lives he would have to risk again. In the quiet of his command deck, with the stars as his only witnesses, Mercer vowed that the Arcturians would come to understand the depth of human resolve. They had underestimated us, and their empire would fall because of it. The aftermath of the Proxima skirmish was a somber affair, with the echoes of battle still fresh in the minds of all who fought. Captain Alex Mercer, now a figure of both inspiration and controversy, had led the Pioneer back to the heart of human space, Earth. The Sol system, humanity's cradle, awaited the storm that was brewing on the horizon. Earth, viewed from space, was a marble of blue and green, now draped in a network of defense satellites and space stations, a testament to human foresight, or perhaps paranoia. The news of the Proxima attack had galvanized the planet, uniting disparate factions under one banner: survival. In the strategic room beneath the United Nations Space Command, the air was thick with tension. General Elena Vasquez, a veteran of countless peacekeeping missions now turned war commander, stood beside Mercer. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the gravity of their situation. "We knew this day might come, but not like this," Vasquez said, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of the incoming Arcturian fleet. Mercer, his uniform still bearing the marks of the last battle, responded, "They think we're cornered animals, Elena. We need to show them we're the predators." Their plan was audacious. Use Earth's moon as a gravitational slingshot to launch a surprise attack, employing new, untested tech, a dark matter catalyst that could disrupt enemy shields. But the risk was immense. Failure could mean Earth's destruction. The meeting was interrupted by Dr. Niles, the project lead for the catalyst. "The catalyst's ready, but we're talking about unleashing something we barely understand. It might not just affect their ships." Mercer's decision was swift, his resolve hardened by the faces of those he'd led into battle. "We don't have the luxury of caution anymore. If we don't try this, we're dead anyway." As Earth prepared for what could be its final stand, whispers of dissent and fear permeated through the ranks. Was Mercer leading them to salvation or doom? The intrigue was palpable among the soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike. The Arcturian fleet arrived, a dark cloud against the star-studded sky. Their ships, like predators from a nightmare, surrounded Earth, confident in their superiority. The battle commenced with the moon as the stage. Earth's ships, led by the Pioneer, used the lunar gravity to gain speed, launching at the Arcturians like bolts from a crossbow. The initial engagement was chaotic, with human ships weaving through enemy fire, dodging, and striking with precision. "Deploy the catalyst!" Mercer commanded over the comms, his voice cutting through the cacophony of war. A single missile, housing the dark matter catalyst, was fired. It hit the Arcturian flagship, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a ripple in space-time, a visible distortion as if reality itself was bending. Arcturian shields flickered and failed, their ships exposed. Victory seemed within grasp, but at what cost? The catalyst had unintended consequences. A small portion of Earth's moon began to crumble under the gravitational anomalies. Mercer watched in horror as the Arcturian flagship exploded, but his heart sank, seeing the debris from the moon. "We've won this battle, but at what cost?" he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Elena, beside him, clenched her jaw. "We'll rebuild, Alex. We have to. This isn't just about surviving this day, it's about securing our future." The siege of Sol was a Pyrrhic victory. Humanity had shown its teeth, but the scars of this battle would be long-lasting. As the Arcturian remnants retreated, Mercer knew this was merely a chapter in a much longer saga. Intrigue lingered. Who among the allies might betray them for their own gain? And could humanity ever truly return to peace after tasting the bitter dregs of war? The victory at Sol was celebrated with somber restraint. Earth was bruised, but not broken, yet the cost was etched in the faces of every survivor. Captain Alex Mercer, now a symbol of human tenacity, found no rest. His mind was on the next move, for the Arcturians would return with vengeance. In the ruins of what was once a bustling spaceport, now turned command center, Mercer convened a clandestine meeting. Around a holographic table, representatives from various alien races, all oppressed by the Arcturian Empire, gathered in secret. There was Jotan, the stoic leader of the Ildar, whose people had been enslaved for mining. Vara, the cunning diplomat from the Lyrans, whose planet was stripped for resources, and Zek, a Zenti, whose motives were as unclear as their loyalty. We need to strike at the heart of the Arcturian Empire before they muster another assault, Mercer began, his gaze sweeping across the room. But we can't do this alone. Jotan's deep voice resonated. The Ildar have ships hidden in nebulae, waiting for a chance to strike back. But we need more than ships. Vara leaned forward, her eyes sharp. We have spies, information. The Lyrans can disrupt their supply lines. But trust is thin when lives are on the line. Zek, the Zenti, whose race was known for their duplicity, spoke softly. We can provide the codes to bypass their defenses, but we expect protection for our people in return. The room was thick with suspicion. Mercer knew alliances like this were fraught with danger. We'll offer sanctuary, but we must ensure no one here is playing both sides. Earth has learned the hard way about betrayal. As they planned, the intrigue deepened. Vara whispered to Mercer, "Watch Zek. The Zenti have always played games within games. Their loyalty is flexible." The meeting concluded with a fragile alliance, each party agreeing to contribute to a multi-front attack on Arcturian strongholds. But, as soon as they parted, Mercer felt the weight of potential betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and the coalition began its dance. Ildar ships emerged from hiding, Lyran agents infiltrated Arcturian bases, and the Zenti provided crucial intelligence. Yet, the tension was palpable. Each action carried the shadow of doubt. One night, while reviewing battle plans, Mercer received an encrypted message from an unknown source. "Beware the Zenti. Their allegiance is not with you." No signature, just a warning that chilled Mercer to the bone. The first major operation was set at the Arcturian mining colony on Minar 4, a strategic point for their war machine. The plan was simple: liberate the slaves, destroy the facility, and show the Arcturians that their grip was slipping. As the Allied fleet approached, Mercer, aboard the Pioneer, felt the unease. "Keep eyes on all communications," he ordered his communications officer, Lieutenant Cho. "If there's a traitor, we'll catch them through their own words." The battle at Minar 4 was fierce. Human and Ildar ships clashed with Arcturian defenses. Amidst the chaos, Mercer's suspicions were confirmed. Zenti ships, supposedly part of the attack force, began to retreat, not from fear, but to flank the human and Ildar vessels. "Zenti are turning on us!" Cho shouted over the comms. Mercer, quick to react, ordered, "Pull back, regroup at position Delta, prepare for betrayal." The twist came when Vara, from her ship, intercepted a communication from Zek to an Arcturian commander, promising to deliver the Allied fleet in exchange for Zenti sovereignty. The betrayal was clear, but the battle was not lost. With cunning and desperation, Mercer used the Zenti's betrayal against them. He broadcasted the intercepted message to all Allied ships, rallying them with the truth of their supposed allies' treachery. "They've played their hand. Now we play ours. Focus fire on the Arcturian reinforcements the Zenti called in." The battle turned. The combined might of the humans and Ildar, fueled by the betrayal's revelation, pushed back both the Arcturians and the traitorous Zenti. Minar 4 was liberated, but at a steep cost, with trust among the allies now as fragile as glass. As Mercer surveyed the aftermath, he knew this victory was but a chapter in a saga of war and intrigue. The Zenti's betrayal had been a test of the coalition's resilience. Now, the real challenge was to maintain this alliance, with every move watched, every whisper analyzed. For in this war, the enemy was not just out there, it was among them. The fallout from Minar 4 left the alliance jittery, with the specter of Zenti betrayal casting long shadows over their plans. Captain Alex Mercer knew that unity was their greatest weapon, but trust was now a luxury they could ill afford. The next target was the Arcturian shipyard in the binary star system of Varnus, where two suns danced in an eternal waltz, providing both cover and danger. Mercer, aboard the Pioneer, convened a strategy session with his closest allies. General Elena Vasquez, now his confidant, and Lieutenant Cho, whose quick thinking had saved them at Minar 4, were present. Jotan, the Ildar leader, and Vara, whose intelligence had unmasked the Zenti's duplicity, joined via secure hologram. "The shipyard at Varnus is key," Mercer explained, pointing at the holographic map where the twin suns pulsated. "If we hit it, we cripple their ability to wage war, but the gravitational anomalies from the stars could be our downfall or our shield." Jotan nodded, his voice heavy with resolve. "My people's ships can navigate those conditions. We'll lead the charge." Vara interjected, her eyes sharp with calculation. "But we need to ensure no more surprises. After Minar 4, we can't trust that all threats are external." Mercer agreed. "We'll keep our communications tight." "Cho, I want you to monitor everything. If there's another rat, we'll flush it out before it gnaws through our plans." As the fleet approached Varnus, the beauty of the twin suns was marred by the looming Arcturian presence. The shipyard was a giant, sprawling structure, guarded by a formidable fleet. The plan was to use the sun's gravitational pull to slingshot their ships, gaining speed and surprise. The battle commenced with the Alliance ships emerging from the sun's glare, a wave of retribution. The initial assault was successful, with Ildar ships leading the charge, their hulls designed to withstand the gravitational stresses. "Keep the pressure on their command ships," Mercer ordered, watching the chaos unfold. His eyes, however, scanned for any sign of betrayal. Then, amidst the battle's fury, Cho's voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, we've got incoming from an unexpected vector. It's Zenti ships!" The twist was not just in their presence, but in their intent. Instead of attacking the Alliance, the Zenti ships targeted the Arcturian reinforcements, engaging them fiercely. "Seems like not all Zenti follow Zek," Vara remarked, her tone mixed with surprise and caution. This could be an opportunity, or another layer of their game. Mercer, seizing the moment, issued new commands. "Redirect half our forces to support the Zenti. If they're with us now, let's make it count." The battle turned into a maelstrom of light and energy. Human ships, now fighting alongside some Zenti, created a pincer movement against the Arcturians, who found themselves outmaneuvered. But as the victory seemed assured, a massive Arcturian dreadnought, hidden in the shadow of one of the suns, emerged. Its weapons powered up, an imminent threat to the Pioneer and the heart of the Allied command. "Evade!" Mercer shouted, but the Pioneer was slow, burdened by battle damage. In the nick of time, a Zenti cruiser, bearing scars of recent combat, positioned itself between the dreadnought and the Pioneer, taking the brunt of the attack. The cruiser exploded, a sacrificial shield, its captain's voice echoing one last time. "For freedom, not for Zek!" The dreadnought was left vulnerable, and with combined firepower from all allies, it was destroyed. The shipyard, now in disarray, was captured, marking a significant blow to the Arcturian war machine. As the smoke cleared, Mercer stood on the bridge, looking at the wreckage of what could have been their defeat. "We've won this battle, but the war is a different beast," he said to his crew, his mind racing with the implications of the Zenti's split loyalty. The intrigue deepened. Who among the Zenti could they trust? Was this act of sacrifice genuine, or part of a larger, unseen strategy? As they prepared to leave Varnus, Mercer knew that every ally, every enemy, had layers yet to be peeled back in this interstellar chess game. After the chaos of Varnus, the Alliance fleet limped back to a temporary base on the edge of human-controlled space. The victory had come at a cost, and the air was thick with suspicion and whispers of further betrayal. Captain Alex Mercer, aboard the Pioneer, felt the weight of command like never before. The Zenti's unexpected aid had saved them, but it also sowed seeds of doubt. In the gloom of the Pioneer's war room, Mercer, General Vasquez, and Lieutenant Cho reviewed the battle logs. Jotan and Vara joined remotely, their images flickering in the dim light. "We can't ignore the Zenti's dual nature," Mercer began. "One of their ships saved us, but we don't know if it was out of loyalty or some deeper game." Vara, always the strategist, countered. "It could be a sign of a faction within the Zenti, one that might be willing to genuinely ally with us." Jotan, his voice rumbling like distant thunder, added, "Or a ploy to infiltrate us deeper. We must be vigilant." As they spoke, a new message came through, encrypted and marked with a Zenti signature. Mercer opened it, his eyes narrowing. It was from an unknown Zenti, claiming to represent a resistance against Zek's leadership. They requested a meeting, promising valuable intelligence in exchange for protection. "Could be our chance to understand their true intentions," Vasquez suggested, though her tone was cautious. Mercer decided, "Set up the meeting, but we'll do it on our terms. Cho, prepare our countermeasures. We're not walking into another trap." The meeting was arranged on a neutral asteroid, far from any significant military presence. Mercer, with a small, heavily armed team, awaited the Zenti envoy. The tension was palpable. Every shadow could conceal an enemy. A lone Zenti shuttle landed, and from it emerged a figure, unremarkable, but with eyes that spoke of desperation. "I am Lyra," she introduced herself, her voice steady despite the situation. "I speak for those of us who do not wish to serve Zek or the Arcturians." Cho, monitoring from a distance, whispered into Mercer's earpiece. "No signs of deceit in their communications so far, but be wary." Lyra continued. "We can give you the locations of Arcturian supply routes, but we need your protection. Our people are dying, caught between two oppressors." The decision was heavy. Trusting Lyra could mean strengthening their forces, but it could also be a ruse to dismantle them from within. "We'll protect you and your people," Mercer decided, his voice firm. "But we'll need proof of your intentions. And remember, betrayal will not be forgiven." Lyra nodded, handing over data chips. "You will find our sincerity in these, but beware. Zek has spies everywhere." As Lyra left, the intrigue deepened. Was this a genuine alliance, or a clever double-cross? Mercer ordered immediate verification of the data, but his mind was already plotting the next moves. Back on the Pioneer, the data was confirmed. It was genuine. However, the celebration was cut short by an assassination attempt on Mercer. A single shot rang out during a strategic meeting, the bullet narrowly missing him, lodging into the bulkhead behind. Cho, quick to react, tackled the would-be assassin, revealing him as a human, not Zenti, in the chaos. "We have a rat among us," Cho declared, his voice hard. The assassin was silent, but the implications were clear. The enemy was not just outside their ranks, but had already infiltrated deep within. The trust within the alliance was now a fragile thing, with every member under suspicion. Mercer, looking at the faces of his crew, knew this was a test of their resolve. "We'll flush out every traitor, but we won't let this divide us. We're stronger together," he proclaimed, though he felt the sting of betrayal keenly. The story was far from over, with shadows lengthening and the true enemy still masked in the darkness of space and human hearts. With trust hanging by a thread, the alliance moved forward, driven by necessity rather than camaraderie. Captain Alex Mercer's survival had solidified his resolve, but the attempt on his life had sown seeds of paranoia. The data from Lyra had led them to the Arcturian homeworld, Arcturus Prime, an opportunity too critical to ignore. Aboard the Pioneer, Mercer gathered his key operatives: General Vasquez, Lieutenant Cho, and the newly trusted Zenti, Lyra, who had proven her worth with actionable intelligence. "We're going to the heart of the beast," Mercer announced, the map of Arcturus Prime sprawling before them. "Our objective is to cripple their central command and disrupt their war effort." Lyra, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination, spoke up. "Their defenses will be at their strongest, but I know a way through the city's underbelly, a path less guarded." Vasquez, always the strategist, cautioned, "It's a trap waiting to happen. We need to be ready for anything." Cho added, "I'll monitor all communications. If there's another traitor, we'll catch them." The infiltration team was small, swift, and deadly, chosen for their skills in espionage and combat. They descended in stealth shuttles, landing in the shadows of Arcturus Prime's industrial sector. The city was a marvel of alien architecture, its beauty marred by the omnipresent war machinery. Moving through the city's underbelly, Mercer's team encountered minimal resistance until they reached the central command hub. Here, Lyra's knowledge proved invaluable as they navigated through service tunnels, avoiding patrols. Suddenly, alarms blared. They were compromised. "It's an ambush!" Cho shouted as Arcturian guards swarmed their position. Mercer, leading from the front, yelled, "Take cover! We make our stand here!" The team scattered, engaging in a fierce firefight. Bullets and energy beams crisscrossed the narrow corridors. Amidst the chaos, Lyra pulled Mercer aside. "I know another way, but it's risky. It leads directly under the command center." "Lead the way," Mercer decided, his trust in her now a gamble they couldn't afford to lose. They fought their way through, leaving a trail of destruction. Finally, reaching the command center, they laid charges around the critical nodes. "Set the timers," Mercer ordered. "We have minutes to get out." Just then, an Arcturian elite unit broke through, led by a figure Mercer recognized, Zek, the Zenti betrayer. "Thought you could escape, Mercer?" Zek sneered, his weapon trained on Mercer. In a flash, Lyra acted, throwing herself at Zek. "You won't touch him!" she screamed, wrestling him for control of the weapon. Gunshots echoed, and both fell. "Lyra!" Mercer shouted, but there was no time. He set the last charge, his heart heavy with the cost of this mission. As they retreated, the charges detonated, shaking the city to its core. The command center was obliterated, sending a shockwave through the Arcturian ranks. But the cost was steep. Lyra had given her life to ensure their escape. Back on the Pioneer, Mercer looked at the destruction, his victory hollow. "We've struck a blow, but at what cost?" he murmured, the image of Lyra's sacrifice etched into his memory. The team knew this was but a moment in a longer war. The Arcturians would rally, perhaps more feral than before. But for now, they had shown that even in the heart of the enemy's empire, humanity and its allies could strike and survive. The story was far from over, with every victory carving deeper wounds and setting the stage for the next, more brutal chapter. The destruction of the Arcturian Central Command had thrown the Empire into disarray, but it also awakened a beast in agony. The skies above Arcturus Prime were now a battlefield, with the Alliance's fleet facing the full might of the Arcturian counterattack. Captain Alex Mercer, aboard the Pioneer, stood at the epicenter of what could be humanity's last stand. The scene was apocalyptic. Ships tore through each other in a dance of death, explosions lighting up the night like new stars. Mercer watched as allies fell, their ships becoming part of the cosmic debris that now encircled the planet. The air was thick with the stench of betrayal. Whispers of disloyalty had grown louder, with every move scrutinized for signs of treachery. Amidst the chaos, Mercer noticed odd patterns in the Arcturian attacks. Too precise, too coordinated. His suspicions were confirmed when he spotted a human ship, one of their own, turning its guns not on the Arcturians, but on the Pioneer. A cold realization hit him. The assassin from before was not an isolated incident. There was a network of betrayal within their ranks. With a heavy heart, Mercer ordered the ship's destruction, a necessary but soul-crushing command. As the traitorous ship exploded, Mercer's focus shifted to the main assault. The Arcturians, now led by a new, ruthless commander, unleashed a weapon unlike any seen before, a beam that seemed to warp space itself, decimating Allied ships with terrifying efficiency. Mercer knew this was the endgame. With every Allied ship lost, the future grew dimmer. Yet, from the depths of despair came a glimmer of hope. A small, previously unnoticed fleet, comprised of ships from various oppressed races, emerged from behind the planet's moon. These were the true believers in the Alliance, those who had nothing left to lose. They hit the Arcturians with a ferocity fueled by years of oppression, their attack disorganized, but passionate. It was enough to disrupt the Arcturian formation, giving the Pioneer and the remaining Allied ships a chance to regroup. Mercer, wounded but undeterred, led the charge. His ship, now a beacon of resistance, pierced through the enemy lines, aiming for the source of the spatial weapon. The battle was a blur of violence, each moment stretching into eternity. As they neared the Arcturian flagship, the source of the weapon, another betrayal unfolded. A Lyran ship, under Vara's command, suddenly veered off, attacking not the Arcturians, but the Ildar ships. Vara, once a pillar of the Alliance, had been turned, her people's desperation making them susceptible to Arcturian promises of power. Mercer, seeing the betrayal, felt the final sting of defeat before victory. With no time for dialogue, he made a split-second decision, ordering all remaining Allied ships to focus on the Arcturian flagship, ignoring the Lyran betrayal for the moment. The Pioneer, now heavily damaged, launched its last salvo. The Arcturian flagship exploded, the spatial weapon vanishing in a spectacular display of destruction, but the cost was immense. The Pioneer was critically hit, its systems failing, its captain gravely wounded. As the ship began its descent towards Arcturus Prime, Mercer looked out at the battlefield. The Arcturian Empire was in chaos, but at what cost to the Alliance? His vision blurred. The sounds of victory were drowned by the silence of his falling ship. The last stand was won, but Mercer knew this was not the end. The seeds of betrayal had grown too deep, the cost of trust too high. As darkness closed in, his final thought was not of victory, but of the peace that humanity had fought so hard to secure, now left in the hands of those who remained. The Pioneer plummeted towards Arcturus Prime, a flaming comet against the backdrop of a war-torn sky. Inside, Captain Alex Mercer, his vision fading, clung to consciousness. The ship's impact was inevitable, yet, in those final moments, the battle around him continued to rage. As the Pioneer crashed, a shockwave rippled through the battlefield. General Elena Vasquez, now in command of the Allied fleet, watched the fiery descent with a heavy heart. "For Mercer," she whispered into the comms, rallying the remaining forces. The war was not over. It was time to honor their fallen leader by ensuring his sacrifice was not in vain. The Arcturian forces, leaderless and in disarray after the destruction of their flagship, began to falter. Vasquez seized the moment, her voice echoing through the comms. "Push them back! For Earth! For freedom! For Mercer!" The Allied ships, now fueled by vengeance and the memory of their fallen comrades, launched a relentless assault. The Ildar, despite the betrayal by the Lyrans, fought with a ferocity born from years of subjugation. Even some Zenti ships, inspired by Lyra's sacrifice, joined the fray, proving not all were loyal to Zek. Amidst the chaos, a new Arcturian commander tried to rally his forces, but the spirit of rebellion had taken root. The Allied fleet, now a patchwork of different races united by a common foe, began to push the Arcturians back towards their planet. On the ground, amidst the ruins of the Pioneer, Mercer lay dying. His last act was to activate a distress beacon, a signal not just for rescue, but as a symbol of human resilience. As he faded, he heard the sounds of battle turning in favor of the Alliance, his last breath a whisper of hope. Above, Vasquez coordinated the final push. "Target their command structures on the surface. We end this here," she commanded. Ships dove through the atmosphere, launching a barrage aimed at Arcturian strongholds. The planet's defenses, weakened by the loss of their central command, crumbled under the assault. As the Arcturian capital fell, a message came through from an unexpected source: Vera, the Lyran who had betrayed them. Her voice was desperate. "We were deceived. The Arcturians promised us sovereignty, but they planned to exterminate us next. I've turned on my own ships to aid you." Vasquez, understanding the complex web of betrayals and alliances, responded, "Redeem your people, Vara. Help us end this." With Vera's unexpected aid, the Allied forces pinpointed the last of the Arcturian resistance. The battle shifted from the skies to the ground, a brutal close-quarters fight through the shattered streets of Arcturus Prime. As the sun rose over a new day, the Arcturian flag was torn down, replaced by a banner of the United Races, a symbol of the new order. The Arcturian Empire, once feared across galaxies, was no more. In the quiet aftermath, Vasquez stood amidst the ruins, looking over the city now silent, save for the cries of victory. A makeshift memorial was erected for Mercer, his name whispered in reverence by those who fought beside him. Lieutenant Cho approached Vasquez, his eyes reflecting the heavy toll of war. "We've won, General, but at what cost?" Vasquez nodded, her gaze distant. "The cost of freedom is always high, Cho, but we've ensured our children won't know the yoke of Arcturian rule." The survivors gathered, a diverse crowd of humans, Ildar, Zenti, and others, all bound by the trials of war. They spoke of rebuilding, not just structures, but bonds between species. Cho, looking at the gathered crowd, said, "Mercer would have wanted us to remember this moment, not just the victory, but the unity." As they began the arduous task of reconstruction, messages of peace and alliance came from other races, those who had watched from afar, now willing to join in a new era. The war was over, but the story of humanity, of resilience, betrayal, and redemption, was now legend. In the silence of victory, the echoes of what was and what could be resonated across the stars. Humanity had not just won a war, they had forged a new future, one where they stood not as conquerors, but as equals among the stars. And in the heart of Arcturus Prime, where the pioneer had fallen, a new monument would rise, not just for Mercer, but for all who had fought, died, and lived for a dream of peace and unity.